Week 16 in the NFL closes out with a cross-conference matchup with playoff implications as the Dolphins head to the Big Easy to take on the Saints. The Dolphins are attempting to do something no other team in NFL history has pulled off, which is start 1-7 and make the playoffs. Miami might have a tough schedule down the stretch, but there's a newfound confidence with this team having won their past 6.
We got a big one coming up against a very good team. I'm just kind of putting initial eyes on the Saints. We got our hands full.
For the Saints, it's been an up and down season. They got off to a hot 5-2 start, then lost starting quarterback Jameis Winston and proceeded to lose their next 5. But they've gotten back to a familiar formula in their last 2, establish the run game and playing dominant defense. The latter of which was on full display last Sunday night as they shut out the defending champions on the road. The first time Tom Brady has ever been shut out at home in his entire career.
Tom Brady has one of the fastest releases. I mean, to try and affect him, to get him off the spot is a task in itself. And I think we did that, and that's what put us in position to be poised to make the run that we did this game.
Can the Saints make it 3 straight and march closer towards a playoff berth? Or will the improbable comeback story of the Dolphins continue and make it 7 straight on the road? It's going down tonight on Monday Night Football.
Two teams that just keep fighting, and they will fight each other tonight, Monday Night Football. Brady Quinn and Danny Kanell with us here to break down Monday Night Football between the Dolphins and the Saints. Miami is a favorite, looking to follow a 7-game losing streak with a 7-game winning streak. Brady, no team has ever started the season 1-7 and made the playoffs. That's not a surprise. But the Dolphins will do it if they can win their final 3 games beginning tonight.
Yeah, I think they need to win their final 3 games in order to ensure themselves a spot in the playoffs as a wild card team at this point. Obviously, with the outcomes for the Chargers this past week, as well as Baltimore and New England, that door is wide open if they can win all 3. But this largely has to do with the fact that Tua Tagovailoa and this offense has been the more steady piece of the two. I mean, we can compliment the defense all we want, but the reality is Tua over the last 4 games in particular has thrown 7 touchdown passes, throwing 3 interceptions. He's completing over 75% of his passes. He leads the league right now in completion percentages, averaging about 236 yards per game. So it in large part comes from the fact that he's been consistent, he's taken care of the football, and he's provided them a lot of stability at that quarterback spot as compared to what we saw earlier in the season, because they don't have much of a run game. And their defense at times has played spotty. So really, to me, this is all about Tua. And I think you're seeing him continue to grow, mature, become the quarterback they were hoping he would be. And I think with a win tonight, it will be huge also to cement him as the starter for next year and really looking forward in the future. I mean, that's what this is really about, is if they can make the playoffs and Tua's second year as a starter with the way they started off this season, it'd be a pretty remarkable turnaround. It would say a lot for maybe how this team should buy in and continue to build out around them if they could finish off the task. And obviously it starts tonight in a tough environment.
Brady, you and I both live here. Chris does too, but he doesn't talk to as many Dolphins fans as we do. But you talk to Dolphins fans, and they were ready to write off Tua Tagovailoa. And I think the organization might have been as well, saying, you know what, it's just not good enough. Too many dinks and dunks, and he's too conservative. And the criticisms were loud, and they were out there. But for him to kind of stay within himself, to keep with his game plan, because he is a guy that's not going to stretch the field vertically too much, but he's making great decisions. And that's something that a lot of quarterbacks have made great careers out of. I mean, the team he's facing in had a quarterback in Drew Brees who didn't have a top-tier cannon, but he was highly accurate, and he made great decisions, and he kept guys moving so they get yards after the catch. And that sounds a lot like what Tua is doing. You mentioned, the completion percentage, which is phenomenal, not only the past 5 games, but on the season, 69.9% is sensational. And he has added a yard per attempt to his resume as well. So it's not like he's checking it down as much as he was early when it really was almost an issue. You're thinking, man, he's got to keep defenses honest. And he's kept his confidence, he's kept the faith, and it has paid off. And so now you see in a league which is very, I know analytics tell you to ignore the momentum. I'm a big believer in momentum and confidence. This team is playing with a lot of confidence, in large part because the confidence they now have in Tua, that he can be the quarterback that can help them win games. So I think it's going to be an exciting race to the finish, and it all starts versus a defense which was phenomenal against Tom Brady last week.
And look, we're not suggesting that they can win the AFC. Yeah, okay, they can win it, but we're not suggesting they will win the East. The remaining schedules for the three teams mathematically alive in the AFC East. If the Dolphins win, they'll be a game behind those two teams, the Patriots and the Bills, with 2 games to go. But realistically, they're looking at a wild card, but it's a really tough schedule the rest of the way. The Saints also looking at the wild card in the NFC. And if they can pull off this win, they will be right there tied with the last playoff spot in the NFC. And Brady, you mentioned it a few weeks ago, thinking, boy, maybe they should give Ian Book a try. He finally gets that first start tonight for the Saints.
Yeah, what an opportunity for Ian Book in primetime on Monday Night Football, getting to come in a huge spot for his team. Now, the only problem is they're missing some pieces. I mean, this is a team that's been riddled by COVID, both on the coaching staff and on the roster. But the most important piece is still there for him, and that is Alvin Kamara, their best player by far. So I do suspect they'll give him a heavy workload. And it's not just in the run game, because the Dolphins are good against the run. It would actually be also the matchups, too, in the passing game. Screens, get him out of the backfield, line him up outside, too, in some empty formations to get the ball to Ian Book's hand quicker. So I think all those things will play to his strength and really be able to rely on Alvin Kamara in the backfield for him. And Sean Payton and his coaching staff have experience, too, with guys aside from what was Drew Brees now since he's retired, coming in, taking over, and doing a good job with them, especially in a backup spot. So I know they'll have a game plan that'll be, productive and ready for them. When you're going up against Brian Flores, here's the biggest key. He's going to give you a ton of different looks. He's going to mix it up series to series. And so I suspect they'll want to run the football a good amount. But when they do throw, you'll see quick, short passing game, some screens, some RPOs too. That's something that Ian Book feels comfortable with. You saw during his time at Notre Dame. And then when they want to push the football down the field, and I don't know how much they'll do that, but I think you're going to see more 7-man protections. And they're just going to try to bottle up a lot of whatever pressures Brian Flores will try to bring, put 3 men out in the routes, and take those one-on-one opportunities when you get them. And that's going to be the biggest key tonight, I think, for Ian Book, just take care of the football, using that mobility that he has. And that's also going to be something where if Brian Flores wants to pressure, or those guys get out of the rush lanes for the Dolphins up front, Book will take off and he'll hurt you with his legs. So that's going to be a key and kind of an X factor, I think, for the Saints and their offense to have success tonight. It's not just hanging their hat on Kamara. It's also Book and his legs.
Interesting. Might be a prop to take a look at Ian Book's rushing numbers later on. I might have to make an audible on mine. But I agree with you. I cannot wait to see Ian Book. What an opportunity for him it's going to be. And I think, yes, Alvin Kamara has to be a key portion of this, but I also think having Sean Payton back and being a coach who has been a quarterback guru and a developer of quarterbacks, but also putting the quarterbacks that are on the field in good positions to succeed. I think that'll be the big difference. You mentioned that a lot of the reasons too. 7-man protections, even the screen game, getting the ball to Alvin Kamara in unique ways, getting his confidence up, and then picking your shots, when to throw them, and hopefully getting some of those behind the Dolphins defense, because they will provide some opportunities with all those different looks they're going to bring. There's going to be opportunities for Ian Book to make some plays. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity for him. I was thinking about my first start was on the road. We were not in this type of pressure-packed situation. This is a phenomenal opportunity for him with everything that's transpired at the quarterback position this season. If he does play well, this could be an audition for the long term. But man, those are the pressure-packed lights of Monday Night Football, national stage. All eyes are on you, and a really important game for your team's season.
Over-under is sitting there at 37, one of the lowest we've seen in a long time in the NFL. So don't expect many points tonight, but we do ask you guys for a first touchdown score. Brady, who do you like?
I mean, to me, it's Alvin Kamara. I was kind of shocked, too, when you saw the value that you can get him at, I believe, plus 420 last time I looked. But, look, he's the favorite. But I do think the Saints at home are going to rely on him heavily, both throwing and running the football. So I'll go ahead and take that chance or take that opportunity that the Saints are going to be the team to surprise you, score first, and it's going to be through Alvin Kamara. No surprises here. Just go with the simple best player on the field, probably for both teams, and that's your safest bet in this one.
So I to be fair, you were first to the line in this one. I was going to go Alvin Kamara because of knowing what he means to this offense and unique ways you get the ball in his hands. But after you took him off the board, I was looking at maybe some value. And I saw Marquez Callaway and said, okay, here's a receiver who has 6 touchdowns on the year. He had a 3-game stretch where he went back to back to back with a touchdown in those. Hasn't, gotten one in a few weeks, but could be an opportunity. If it's not Alvin Kamara, the next best thing, I think, is Callaway with an opportunity there on the outside. And the plus 1,500 value was something I couldn't pass down right there. So I love it. But Ian Book, I also saw his name on that board too. You mentioned the dual threat. Is there a chance he gets out, scrambles, or some sort of naked bootleg that could be called in the red zone? That could be one to look out for too. But I went with Callaway at plus 1,500.
Pete Prisco also likes Marquez Callaway as an anytime scorer. You can get that around plus 250 tonight. Danny, I'm going to come right back to you for your best Dolphins prop. What is it?
So for my best Dolphins prop, I had to look it up right here. Mike Gesicki. That, to me, has been the tight end that's been a go-to for Tua. We mentioned how he's a high completion percentage guy. Gesicki's a good matchup out there. His completions are at 4.5. Usually he easily gets 6 or 7 targets a game. He's got sure hands. So I went with over Mike Gesicki's reception total for the Dolphins.
And I've got Jalen Waddle on the other side here. If you really look at his last 3 games, the over-under set at 5.5 receptions. Pretty low. He's got over that number the last 3 games in a row, and really 7 of the 13 games this season. He's emerged as their number 1 wide receiver and continually has gotten better and better as the season's gone on. So unless he's matched up against Lattimore the entire game, which I don't think Dennis Allen is going to put Marshawn Lattimore in that position, he's got a favorable matchup versus Paulson and Debo. And again, they'll move him around to find ways of getting him the football. So I think the over of 5.5 receptions for Jalen Waddle is money in the bank.
And Brady mentioned he likes Alvin Kamara at plus 420 as an first touchdown scorer. You also like Kamara on a prop. What is that?
Yeah, the receiving yards. I think he'll go over the 24.5 yards receiving. A little concern in regards to his rushing total, only because you could see him split carries with Mark Ingram to some degree. And again, I talked about the Dolphins defense. They're good against the run. So I think the most favorable matchup for him is out in the passing game. The over 24.5 yards is easily doable for him. When you look at really the last 3 games, he's got over that number in 2 of the last 3. So I like the over of 24.5 receiving yards for Kamara.
I hope you nail that one, because that one should help mine. I'm looking at Ian Book, and I thought his passing yardage total was a little bit light, and it should be, right? The expectation should be low for a rookie making his first start on the big stage. But I think he's smart enough to handle the system. I think Peyton will put him in good positions to get a couple chunk plays. Those plays will be there to be had. Mentioned Callaway, possibly the first touchdown scorer. He's a threat down the field. You got Kamara. You can get the ball to him as well on screens, get the ball in his hands creatively. I think Sean Payton will do that. So I think Ian Book goes over his passing yardage total.
All right, it's time to pick the total and the line here. Brady, I've interviewed a lot of our experts. I've listened to a lot of our experts on podcasts and other HQ shows. I haven't seen anybody picking the Miami Dolphins -3 in this one.
Yeah, I'm not either. Look, playing in New Orleans is a tough place to play to begin with, and especially the way that defense is playing. I think one of the things that's gotten camouflaged over, and we talked a lot about in regards to the Dolphins this year, when talking about Tua's good plays, everyone says, well, he dinks and dunks, this and that. Well, what's the byproduct of that? It's not like all of a sudden he lost whatever ability he had to press it down the field like we saw during his days at Alabama. It's the fact that they can't protect long enough up front, and they're going to have a really hard time versus this defensive front and the New Orleans Saints playing at home. And so because of that, I'll gladly take the 3 points here. And Ian Book, who I know is going to take care of the football, I know his legs will become a factor. They've got the best player on the field in Alvin Kamara, and I trust Sean Payton and his coaching staff to come up with a game plan where most people doubt them to be able to not only cover this, but win outright in prime time. So I love the +3 here, but I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game. If you're looking at the best phases of each team, it's the defense the way they're both playing right now. Obviously the Saints, especially with their situation at the quarterback spot on offense, but also for the Dolphins. The defense has really come on, and I think that's the more balanced, consistent group at this point, given that outside of Tua and his play this year, there really hasn't been much consistency for the Dolphins offense.
Yeah, I don't know how many times on our Monday Night Football picks we've been total lockstep, but we are tonight. Same exact play with the Saints as the home dog. I like this number a lot. I like their position here. I don't like hearing that everybody is here and that no one's taking the Dolphins. That makes me a little bit nervous. but I also think it'll be a lower scoring game. I think the 37, people are going to read about it. Oh, that's way too low. You have to go over on this one. That should tell you something. The odds makers know this is going to be a lower scoring game. I think the Saints are going to try to establish the run against that Dolphins defense, which is going to be so tough. I do think Ian Book outperforms his passing yards. We were just talking about that, but I don't expect him to light it up like we saw Joe Burrow do or a lot of quarterbacks that are out there. I still think this will be a defensive style of game. We just saw the Saints shut out Tom Brady. I guarantee you they'll have a pretty solid game plan to force Tua to maybe push the ball deeper down the field or at least have him hold the football, which could provide some pressure opportunities for them. So I'm with you. Total agreement. Give me the Saints at home. And I like them to win outright as well if you want to throw a little on the money line. And I think it'll be a lower scoring game too. So I'm on the under as well.
Going to get the confetti on Friday night, New Year's Eve, when we welcome in 2022. And we get the confetti now as we have a lock unity. Brady Quinn and Danny Kanell on really Saints money line and the under 37. Let's recap some of the other picks from the guys. They like a few props as well. Danny mentioned that he would also take Alvin Kamara as a first touchdown scorer, but he went with Callaway as well because of the value and because Brady got his picks in first and he didn't want to feel like a copier. But also Brady likes Waddle over 5.5 receptions, Kamara over 24.5 receiving yards, Danny Gesicki over 4.5 receptions, and Ian Book over 181 passing yards.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.